faiblir. Tu sais que je vais sombrer, certains ne changent pas. Certains se sont faiblir. Tu sais que je vais sombrer, certains ne changent pas.
A refugee is someone who has fled their home country because they face significant violations of human rights and persecution. The hazards to their safety and lives were so grave that they felt they had no alternative but to flee their nation and seek refuge elsewhere, since their own government could not or would not protect them. Refugees are entitled to international assistance. 82.4 million people have been forcibly moved over the world. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, this is the highest number since World War II. Throughout, 26.4 million individuals have become refugees in different nations around the world. Another 4.1 million individuals are asylum seekers who have applied for but have not yet been granted refugee status. Children make up roughly 42% of refugees, with over 1 million being born as refugees between 2018 and 2020. Here are 5 countries with the most refugees from. Firstly is Syria with 6.8 million refugees and asylum seekers. Most Syrians who have become refugees because of the Syrian civil conflict have remained in the Middle East. Secondly, refugees mostly came from Venezuela, as 5.4 million of refugees, asylum seekers and migrants. Since 2014, millions of Venezuelans have fled the nation due to years of economic and political upheaval. They travel to surrounding nations in search of food, jobs and a better life. Thirdly is occupied by Afghanistan, as this country produced 2.8 million refugees and asylum seekers out of 82.4 million people that have been forced to move over the world by 2020. Next is South Sudan with 2.2 million refugees and asylum seekers. The long-running violence in South Sudan has resulted in one of Africa's greatest refugee crises. Lastly, refugees mostly came from Myanmar, as 1.1 million refugees and asylum seekers. In western Myanmar's Rakhine state, around 1.1 million Rohingya people have left their home. Approximately 880,000 stateless Rohingya refugees now reside in Kutupalong, the world's biggest and most densely inhabited refugee camp.
A refugee is a person who has been forcibly moved over a national border and is unable to return home safely. Being a refugee entails more than simply being an outsider. Living in exile means relying on others for necessities like food, clothes, and shelters. The problem of refugee is human rights issues involving migration of individuals from location where they are denied to countries where they are guaranteed. Today, the refugees crisis is one of the world's most pressing issues. Imagine a million homeless people arriving in your area without job, money, food, or possession. They would require a wide range of service, including drinkable water, sanitation, medical service, and nutrition. In Bangladesh, where over 1 million Rohingya Muslims have fled violence in their native nation of Myanmar since August 2017, Bangladesh has suffered unprecedented and severe environmental devastation as a result. This is because as refugees chop trees for homes and fuel, temporary improvised housing for Rohingya has devastated at least 3,713 acres of important reserve forest as a result. Soil erosion has substantially rising. The impact on the economic costs in Europe, more than 1 million refugees and migrants have arrived, causing widespread anxiety that they may become an economic burden on the countries that accept them. These fears are understandable in the wake of any major societal transformation. The unexpected influx of nearly 1 million Algerians into France pushed up the unemployment rate for the low-skilled French employees by around a fifth of a percentage point. Balkan refugees appears to have generated a tiny short-term rise in native unemployment across Europe. As well, the influx of 125,000 Cubans into Miami had a little effect on unemployment, but did result in a modest increase in average low-skilled salaries. The impact on the health, long trips and bad living circumstances are generating a slew of health issues, and individuals on the road have very limited access to basic treatment. People suffer at every point of the journey, including after they arrive at the country of their choice. In 2015, 63% of the 11,097 medical consultations conducted by the doctors of the world in Calais were connected to living circumstances in a camp, with over a quarter being orthopedic ailments, hypothermia, wounds, and gastrointestinal disease are among the most prevalent health problems encountered in refugee camps, according to the World Health Organization.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees (UNHCR) is charged by the United Nations with leading and coordinating international action for the global protection of refugees and the resolution of refugees issues. The primary goal of UNHCR is to protect the rights and well-being of refugees. It generally necessitates appropriate measures to ensure that any decision made by refugees regarding return is voluntary, free of coercion, and based on objective information. Support for the return of refugees to conditions of physical, legal, and material safety with goal of full restoration of national protection ensures that return occurs in safety and dignity and that it is sustainable. In 2010, UNHCR's strategy focused on voluntary return of IDPs, including non-food return assistance, basic shelter support, and coordination with governmental and other actors.
Local integration.
The scope and pace of the integration process are determined by the number of refugees and the host society's social and economic conditions. UNHCR provides ongoing capacity building assistance to refugees to help them integrate into their host country and become self-sufficient. Settlement can be an effective burden sharing and international cooperation mechanism, providing options to assist first country asylum seekers and in accordance with the principle of international solidarity by distinguishing responsibilities for initial reception and processing arrangement from the provision of long-term solutions. Resettlement agreements can encourage coastal states to allow for the disembarkation of refugees rescued at sea. In Brazil, women at risk are prioritized for resettlement and their application are processed at first.
Hundreds of thousands of NGO employees are directly or indirectly active in easing refugee misery. UNHCR collaborates closely with over 300 similar groups throughout the world. One of them are International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, and Save the Children. Not to forget the Rohingya Women Development Network, RWD, WTN is Malaysia's first women-led group for Rohingya refugees. Started in 2016 by Sharifah Shakira, a Rohingya refugee, our WTN runs programs that aim to empower Rohingya women. These include English and Quran classes and livelihood skills training. By teaching women to harness their abilities, our WTN provides them with opportunities to lead, to stand up for their rights, and to achieve financial independence in an otherwise patriarchal community.
Okay, I'm going to continue with my part, right? Refugee claims are based on fear of persecution, and persecution occurs when human rights violations or threats are sustained or systematic, and governments either fail to protect their citizens or actively participate in the violations in some cases. It could happen because a person has a certain political or religious belief, or because they belong to a certain ethnic or social group. For example, assassination, torture, and violence, including sexual violence. Men and boys are frequently killed, imprisoned, or forced to fight in conflicts. They are forced to flee or hide, often to protect their families. While women and girls face unique forms of abuse because of their gender, they are frequently targeted for sexual abuse, rape, forcible impregnation, sexual slavery, and forced prostitution. While children are especially vulnerable to exploitation, physical abuse, denial of education, sexual violence and exploitation, and recruitment as child soldiers. They may be separated from family members, and the children may witness the death of family members. In some cases, the consequences are refugees' mental health will be worse. This is due to before being forced to flee, they may face imprisonment, torture, loss of property, malnutrition, physical assault, extreme fear, rape, and loss of livelihood before being forced to flee. And the last one, a writer from Afghanistan in theatre, radio and television, including a drama that aired on BBC Radio, Saleh Sepas, starts Peristo Theatre. Peristo has been putting up theatre performances since 2017, and it also participated in festivals and events calling attention to the refugee issue. It acts as a form of release and escape, allowing refugees to voice their fears and frustrations instead of struggling silently.
Share responsibility. Regional Refugee Compact.
The United Nations Global Compact on Refugees was signed by 181 countries in December 2018. The document's goals are reducing the burden on host countries, promoting refugee self-sufficiency, expanding access to third country resettlement options, and improving conditions in refugees' home countries to allow them to safely return.
Increase support.
Until nowadays, humanitarian appeals around the world are severely underfunded, and the funding to needs gap is widening. Rich countries such as United Kingdom also attempt to reduce their humanitarian aid budgets. Wealthy nations must increase their assistance and funding to people living in conflict zones.
Treat refugees like human beings.
According to the UNHCR, detention should be viewed as a last source for countries dealing with refugee influxes. Border closures and privatization of immigration detention centers have resulted in a rapid increase in the imprisonment of refugees, including women and children around the world. In conclusion, refugees are unable to return home due to ongoing conflict, wars, and persecution. Problems that faced by refugees in a foreign country are discrimination in the workplace. Some employers recognize this group's sense of urgency and desperation to keep their jobs, so they will force them to take less desirable and even dangerous roles. Besides, the positive sides of being a refugee is they can stimulate economy by start business that employ locals and generate money while making the contributions to social security and pensions funds. With adequate international, financial and technical support for as long as is required, there is a strong likelihood that the overall impact will be neutral or positive to the country.